So if Prime Minister Cameron is right and staying in the EU is so important, then why propose the referendum to begin with? I talked to Kallum Pickering. He's a senior UK economist at Berenberg.
Okay, to cut a long story short, before the previous election, David Cameron had some troubles within his party. Remember, after Labour were voted out, it was the centre-right Conservatives and the centre-Liberal Democrats that shared a coalition. In order for David Cameron to get a second term, he had to unite his party, and within the Conservative Party, the centre-right Conservative Party, there have historically been many Eurosceptics. So one agreement to keep peace within his party heading into the last election was to offer an in-out referendum on EU membership. When the Conservative Party won the previous election, that gave him the second term as Prime Minister. He had to live up to that promise, and now that's what we're seeing on June 23rd. The UK will have this in-out referendum for European Union membership.
Talk to us about what role the UK plays in the EU.
Okay, the straightforward arguments for what role the UK has in the EU, it's almost a fifth of the European Union economy, so it's a big chunk of the economy. It's a very trade-oriented, open, large economy. It's very market-facing, so it promotes free market principles. You could say in many ways it's got a sort of American influence in the European Union. It also has the fifth largest military in the world, so generally from military to economics to political influence, it raises the EU's prominence.
So let's just say UK decides to leave EU. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that. What happens for the European Union, and what happens for European countries not in the EU?
Okay, this is very, very complicated. It primarily depends upon what type of deal the UK and the EU agree to. Let's say, for the sake of argument, the UK, as I think is most likely, will arrange some bilateral trade agreements in certain markets. That will probably mean that in most good markets, in some services markets, it's basically the status quo. It will also mean that free movement of people also takes place. That's one of the principles of the European Union. Free movement of goods equals free movement of people. Besides that, we'll probably see a fall in cross-border trade. Generally, we'll see a fall in cross-border investment. That will reduce the welfare of the UK and the EU. The EU shrinks. As I said, it's almost a fifth smaller. It loses the military influence, if you consider that's part of also the EU, though the UK actually lends itself to bigger institutions like the UN with its military. For countries outside of the EU within Europe, I don't think it makes much of a difference. We might see some copycats from other EU and particularly Eurozone economies where we've seen populist uprisings such as Le Pen in France, maybe even in Spain and Italy, where these populist parties sharing the same frustrations of those who push for an in-out referendum in the UK say, okay, we want our own referenda. Maybe there are some copycats that try and basically rip the fabric of European cohesion apart, and there is some risk of that taking place. That's the real risk, that if the UK leaves, other countries try to leave too. Now, I don't think that will happen. The core countries of Europe, the Germany, the France, the Benelux area, will try to push for some signal, some political initiative to say to markets, European cohesion is sound. There'll also be some encouragement for maybe the erstwhile members that may be pushing for in-out referenda to stay within the core group. But that is seriously the risk for the European Union.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Callum Pickering, senior UK economist, Berenberg. Thank you.
If you like what you just saw, follow us on social media and visit our website, cctv-america.com.